Our ability to design lives that we love is directly tied to our ability to rest well. In today's video, we're talking about 3 ways to design your rest instead of rewarding yourself with it. So let's chat. If you have ever said these words, then this video is for you. When things slow down, then I'll rest. Or I can't wait for things to slow down. Contrary to popular belief, rest isn't just something that you do. It is actually an internal condition. It is a heart posture. It's a state of being. You know how people will say your heart is at a rested state, meaning there's nothing that's stimulating it. There's nothing that's making it pump or flow harder than it naturally does. That's exactly what rest is. It is natural. It is an innate right. God literally hard-coded it into us in the same way that we need air or we need water. We require rest, but not just sleep. There's a difference between sleeping and resting. And this is not a biological conversation. This is a life design conversation. But I want us to understand that while rest is something that is an innate right to us and we have the right to it, we have to know our right and exercise our rights. And we have to build up the skill / the muscle so that we have the ability to rest. And we actually understand what that looks like in our daily life so that it can then become a part of our weeks, become a part of our months, become a part of our year, and ultimately become a part of our broader life. The longer that we reject rest, the longer we delay our destiny, because our ability to perform, our ability to speed up is directly connected to our ability to slow down. I think that this is something that I personally had the hardest time coming to terms with, and you might also be experiencing that same struggle, because everything about our world works in opposition to rest. Everything tells us to go harder, tells us to go faster, to go quicker, right? But in reality, we were actually made to be in a work-rest rhythm, which means sometimes we're working, sometimes we're resting. Sometimes we are working so that we can prioritize our rest. And we'll talk about all of that as we get into this video. But when I think about my relationship with rest, which was incredibly tricky for a long time, not due to any fault of my own and not due to any fault of your own either, but because we were not conditioned or taught to rest, even though that is the way that we were designed. We were designed to need it, to crave it, to require it, and we were designed to build our lives around it and according to it, not the other way around. When I think about even being a kid and being in school, simple things like our breaks being portioned out for us and you feeling as though you might need a second to look away from your paper. You might need a second to just reset your brain, but that rest was not readily available to you. And over time, that leads us to believe that rest is something that we get in exchange for completing a task, for finishing an activity, for somebody telling us that it is okay to stop. But what happens when we get out of those formal environments and we no longer have somebody who is instructing us when to stop? For many of us, we never do until our body or our minds or our spirits reach a point of no return, which is why we're having the conversation today about designing our rest instead of rewarding ourselves with it, or our bodies requiring us to stop because we have no other choice. We think that rest is something that we just happen upon, when in reality, it is something that we have to intentionally prioritize and commit to, just like every other good thing in our life. A lot of things that we think should come easy or naturally to us often don't, not because it's not for us, but because we haven't actually created the space to receive it, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today and exactly what we're about to hop into. So we said that rest is a skill. It's something that we have to develop, a lot like a muscle. And when I think about muscles, when I think about the point of muscles, they're really there to protect us. They strengthen us, they protect our bodies, they protect all of the things that are within our bodies that help us to operate, and they also help us to carry and lift and hold the weight of life. Right? The same is true about rest. When we are not well rested, that means that we are not well regulated, which means that we don't actually have what it is that we need to go out into the world and act and serve and do the things that we were created and we have committed to do. Which is why we have to commit to our rest in the same way that we commit to every single activity or responsibility that we have in other parts of our life. One of the things that often gets in the way of our rest are obligations. And we need to just take a second to understand the difference between an obligation and a commitment. Because far too many of us are doing things out of obligation instead of out of commitment. When we think about the concept of an obligation is something that we feel as though we have to do. That does not mean that we actually have to do it. It just means that we feel as though we have to do it. And being able to sit down and make that distinction between something that is an obligation and something that is a commitment is truly one of the most freeing things you will ever experience. When we sit and we clearly understand what it is that we value, we understand that we get to commit to these things. And that does not mean that the thing is going to be easy. It doesn't mean that we are always going to want to do it. When we sit down and we assess the why associated with it, we understand that this thing holds intrinsic value to us. It is contributing to a broader purpose. It is bringing us towards something that we truly want. It is enabling an outcome that is important to us. It's caring well for the people that we love. It's caring well for ourselves. It's honoring God, versus an obligation, which are often things that we are doing out of fear or impulse, right? Or feeling guilty for whatever reason. So we need to sit down and first really understand the distinction between an obligation and a commitment so that we can assess what is getting in the way of my rest. And oftentimes, for many of us, it is either obligations that we have overextended ourselves for, or the over allocation of commitment. Listen, I know that we are just getting into today's video, but my hunch is that you're already loving it. And if that is correct, I want you to hit that link down below and sign up to chat with our team so you can learn more about how you can work with us. We would absolutely love to have you, baby, because we are taking one step at a time to design a life we absolutely love, and we can't do that alone. So check that out. All right, back to the video. So we've talked about what rest is. We've talked about it being a state of being instead of just an act or something that we do. Although I do believe that it is an incredible act of resistance in this busy, big, hard world that we live in. It is something that we do, but it is also something that we become. I honestly can say that I have become much more of the woman that God designed me to be when I started designing my life around rest instead of just taking it wherever I could get. Only people who have no choices or no options take whatever they can get. And everything that we know to be true about God, everything that we know to be true about who we are as His children tells us that we are not people who settle. We are not people who are normal. We are not people that just take whatever we can get. We are not people that just take the scraps. Our God has promised us the best. He has promised us the best for us, which means that there are things that are specifically crafted just for you. And you need to be in the best place, in the best condition that you can be to receive those things as they come available to you. So here are the 3 steps that we're taking in order to design rest rather than just accepting it wherever we can get it. Because baby, we're not into this. But before that, here are the couple of things that we've already talked about. We've talked about rest being a muscle that we have to strengthen. That means it's not something that we just build and then it stays forever. Do you know what happens when you stop working out? Baby, you lose that muscle mass, okay? All those gains that you got in the gym, they're out of there. You have to continue to lift. You have to continue to prioritize it. You have to commit to it and make it a priority just as much as any other part of your life. You have to do it regularly, and you have to do it intentionally and diligently, which means that there might be different ways that you are strengthening that muscle of rest, which is what we're talking about designing. So we are focusing on not doing things out of obligation. This is the first step to learning to design your rest. That means that we are not doing things because we feel pressured to execute on it. When I talk to women and I ask them what is interfering with them actually designing a life that they love, actually doing what it is that they value, actually stewarding their time, talents, and treasures well, the first thing they always tell me is, I have so much I have to do. I have so much I have to do. Girl, I'm overloaded. I'm tired. My schedule is bogged down. And when I say, what is it bogged down with? They tell me obligations. And I think that obligation is such an interesting word. And I think that words are so important. I know that words are so important. And when we look at the literal definition of an obligation, it is like a legal requirement. Babes, like it is something that somebody told you had to do. You feel as though if you do not do this thing, there are going to be consequences. But hear me, oftentimes the consequences of obligations, the obligations that we have made up in our heart, in our mind, in our life, are just perceived, okay? They are trumped up charges. Those consequences are not real. They are just things that are meant to deter and distract you from actually doing the things that truly matter, that are truly going to contribute to you becoming the person that you are meant to be and doing the work that you have been called to do. Therefore, these obligations need to be reassessed. We need to understand, are these obligations or are these commitments? Commitments meaning actions, tasks, activities that you have intentionally decided to act on because you value them. They are producing an outcome that is actually important to you. They are serving somebody who you care about. They are meeting a need that you or somebody else has. Going to work each day is a commitment. Showing up for every single, show that, a friend has is an obligation, specifically if that person did not ask you to do it. And oftentimes we put so many obligations on ourselves that we did not have to pick up. We have to get more intentional about understanding what things are actually ours to carry, because when you're carrying all of these things that don't belong to you, you have no more hand space to actually hold up and carry the things that do. And that is how we end up in this cycle of feeling like, oh my gosh, when things just slow down, then I can rest. So first things first, we are assessing obligations versus commitments. My favorite way to do this is to sit down and look at my calendar. And I know that you have one because you're my girl and you're tapped in, okay? You're tapped in, you're organized. You don't need another Notion template. You don't need another agenda. You don't need another to-do list, all right? We need to learn how to actually determine what is ours to be doing and what isn't. So I want you to sit down and look back at your calendar. Look back at your agenda, look back at your Notion, look back at whatever you use to track your time, energy, attention. She's there. I know she's there. And I want you to ask yourself, if I did not show up for this thing, if I did not execute on this thing, what would be the result? What would be the consequence? If that consequence means a bill is not paid, a real need is not met, like your child is not picked up from school, or a work deliverable is not sent to the person who needs it, and a deal is going to fail, then those things are not actually tasks that are yours to own or commitments for you. Instead, they are just obligations that we have taken on. This can often look like us being in a church meeting, for example, or even a business meeting, or even on the phone with friends, and somebody puts out a need. They say, I need somebody to run tomorrow's prayer call. And there's 10 people on the call, and nobody raises their hand. And you raise your hand out of impulse, out of obligation. And what you didn't do was check in first to understand, do I even have the desire and the capacity to execute on this thing? You did it reactively. You did it impulsively because of your heart, because you do genuinely care. But if that thing is interfering with your commitments, like your rest, if you are doing it out of impulse instead of out of true willingness and availability to execute on it, if you should not be the one responsible for that thing, you have now adopted or inherited an obligation that was never yours to take on. So if it is not aligning with your true priorities, your values, and your capacity, all three of those things have to be aligned. You could want to prioritize the thing, you could value the thing, but if you don't have the capacity, then you have now taken on something that was never yours to take on. And every single thing that we say yes to is something that we are ultimately saying no to. So first things first, if we're designing our rest, baby, we have to really reassess these obligations versus our commitments, and we have to thin things out. This might mean having a hard conversation with a friend and letting them know, I'm not going to be able to make it to every single event this season, but I will be at several of them with bells and whistles on. And girl, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have our time. We're going to go to dinner. We're going to go to lunch. I'm going to come over, whatever it is, right? But we cannot put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves to be everywhere doing everything for everyone all the time. It is literally impossible. All right. And if you want to talk about perfectionism and God complexes, we can run that conversation up, okay? Just leave me a comment down below and we will have that. The next thing that we need to learn to do. So you have stopped doing things out of obligation. Now you need to stop overcommitting. We need to make commitments, but we need to only commit to the things that we truly have the capacity to do. And the best way to do this is to regularly check in with yourself and also keep track of what you actually have going on, which, like we said, we know you're doing because you just pulled up your agenda, you just pulled up your calendar, but the step that you might be missing is simply allowing that calendar to guide your life instead of you guiding your calendar. What do I mean by that? There are going to be ebbs and flows of what we actually have the bandwidth to do based on a variety of circumstances. Just one might be the fact that we are girls, okay? We're just girls. And at any part of the month, we are going through so many different things, all right? If you're picking up what I'm putting down, we're here, okay? There are several different things that could be going on at any moment and several different combinations of things that could be flowing and surging through our bodies. And for that reason, that legitimately means that we do not have the same capacity, the same mental abilities, the same cognitive function, the same energy levels throughout the month. And for that reason, no matter how much we might want to do the thing, no matter how committed we are to the activity holistically, our ability to act on that task, event, action at a particular given time might not be something that we can do. So we need to get really intentional and realistic, meaning what is actually attainable and possible for you, your specific life, your specific needs, and your specific body at a particular point in time. That is how we stop overcommitting. We stop overcommitting by not allowing our calendar to run us, but instead running our calendar. That means if somebody calls you and they ask you for something, or if you see something that you want to do, you check in with yourself and you say, how do I feel? What do I need? What else do I have going on? And what is actually realistic for me to be able to do at this particular point in time based on all the different variables that I have going on in my life. That is how you prioritize space for your rest and for your rested state, despite all the things that are going on around you. We have a responsibility as people to control our internal condition. And one of the ways that we do this is by protecting our rest at all costs. Y'all, the biggest bug just falling on me. As I was saying, we have a responsibility to protect our internal condition, and that bug was about to make me crash out. Therefore, he had to lose his life. My condolences, sir. Where were we? Yes. We're going to stop overcommitting by actually checking in with our real capacity at a particular point in time. This is another way that we are designing our rest instead of just falling into it whenever we can. And this is a way to honor work-rest rhythm. Work-rest rhythms are not the only rhythm in our lives. Just like we said, women ourselves have a rhythm. We have a cycle that we go through every single month, right? And I have a commitment personally to resting during my cycle week. That means that my personal workout routine, my mental load, the activities that I take on in that week are significantly decreased. That gives me space to actually be renewed and refreshed so that for the rest of the month, I have the energy that I need to actually execute on the things that I need to do. The reality is that all of these rhythms that are a part of our life that were hard coded are the way that we are meant to function. And when we ignore them, we are essentially going against the grain. Do you know what happens when you rub your hand up against a plank of wood, like a piece of raw wood? If you rub your hand up against it in the opposite direction that the grain is going, you end up with a hand full of splinters. When you go against a current, when you go against a wave, you get swept up in it. And for too many of us, that is what is happening on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. We are going against the rhythms of how we were designed to function, and ultimately it is cannibalizing our ability to design and live a life that we love. There are so many things that are meant to work for us if we just let it. So we are not doing things out of obligations, baby. We are doing the things that we are committed to. And for the things that we are committed to, we are not overcommitting to multiple things at one time. We have to be realistic about our capacity at a given point in time, and we need to go with the rhythms that are there to support us instead of working against them. And last but not least, we are designing our calendar and we are using it to defend our work-rest rhythm. All right? Here's what I mean by that. My rest is on there, okay? She doesn't move. My rest throughout the day, my rest throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the year is the first thing to go on my calendar at the beginning of the year. There are points and times throughout my year that I am resting. There are points and times throughout my month that I am resting. There are points throughout my week that I am resting, and throughout my day that I am resting. I have my calendar blocked for that rest at all times. And I have also created an expectation with the people that I love that they know that I am resting during this point in time, which brings me to my third point. We do not just defend our calendar by being hardos. We defend our calendar by setting a standard. And that standard says, this is what you can expect from me at a particular point in time. And anything that you need from me, anything that needs to be done has to be done ahead of that rest. So let me tell you a little bit about the rest that is on my calendar outside of my cycle rest. A rest non-negotiable for me is Sabbath. The practice of Sabbath, of Shabbating as a principle, is a non-negotiable for my life and my family's life. We Sabbath every single week, but we also Shabbat throughout the day. Shabbat literally means to pause. It means to stop and to bask and delight in the goodness of God. And there's so many different ways that we can do that. We can do that through worship, but we can also do that through just like delighting in this life. Like we can do that through prayer and actually talking and communing and like speaking with God throughout our life, but we also get to do that by delighting and enjoying the world around us. So me practicing Shabbat as a principle doesn't always look like me getting down on my knees and crying out to the Lord, but it very well might. It could look like me going for a walk in the middle of the day. It could look like me going and just sitting on my balcony and looking at the birds and thinking, oh my gosh, he created that. One of my favorite ways to Shabbat is on airplanes. I have pretty much made a commitment to myself that I exclusively block my time on airplanes to rest. This is one of my favorite rules. Even on work trips, the only time that I ever don't do this is if I am like traveling in the middle of the day and I need to get something out or do something. But oftentimes, if I have to do something, I will do my very best to work in the airport so that I can like Shabbat on the airplane. And here's how I like to do this. I like to sit and look out the window. I love a window seat, baby. And I love a window seat because, like, one, I don't want people to be all up on me, but also because I love to look at the clouds. And every single time I am on an airplane, I am overcome by the beauty of it. And I just sit there and think, my gosh, the same God who created me created this big, wide world. How absolutely stunning. That is one of my favorite ways to Shabbat. So we have to design our calendar and also defend our calendar to work in service of resting. And that can look different for different people. That should look different for different people. But the principle, the practice, and the skill of learning to protect your rest is exactly how you are not just going to design it, but how you're going to actually maintain it, sustain it, and not just schedule over it. It comes with you being really intentional and committed to that allocation of time. And it comes with you also setting the expectation and standard with those around you that that is what that time is reserved for. And I want to say this so clearly. Please do not ever let anybody make you feel bad for needing rest. Yuck, okay? Yuck. I am typically not the one to get like irritated, but that irritates me. And let me just take an aside, okay? If I catch you making fun of somebody who needs rest, I don't like that. And we're going to have a conversation about that, okay? If somebody needs to take a break, if somebody needs a second, if I'm in the gym and somebody needs a drink of water and y'all are punking people for needing a drink of water, we need to have a conversation about that, because the reality is that too many of us are not resting. Too many of us are not slowing down. Too many of us are not trusting our own discernment and listening to our bodies, our hearts, listening to the guidance and the prompting of the Lord because of the opinions and the thoughts of others. And those same people are crumbling just like you. So I want to encourage you to never let anybody make you feel bad for needing rest. Never let anybody make you feel bad for protecting your time. Never let anybody make you feel bad for living your life by design and doing the things that you were literally created to do. Because here's the thing, when you are flourishing and they are still malfunctioning because they have been going against the grain and swimming against the current for the last 35 years, you are going to be able to show them exactly how to get themselves out of it, because you are going to be able to comfort them in the way that you were once comforted. And you took heed of this video, you took heed of this advice, and you listened to the way that God actually instructed you in the path that He set you on, instead of just doing what it was that everybody else told you to do. So baby, go off. I'm excited for you in advance. All right. So you are now well on your way to not just designing a life that you love, but designing your rest instead of just accepting it wherever you can. If these words never come out of your mouth again, I will rest when things slow down, it would be too soon. Let's recap the few things that we covered today. All right. Your rest is an innate right. It is not a reward. And anybody that tells you different is a liar. Okay. And the lies need to go back to where they came from, because rest is something that you were literally designed to need, and it comes in many different shapes and forms, but it is a non-negotiable and something that you need to be protecting with your life, because your life does literally depend on it. Maybe you will not die, but your quality of life and your ability to not just function, but flourish is directly tied to how well you learn to rest. All right. You becoming the person that you were created to be is directly tied to your ability to rest, because it is when we rest that we are renewed. It is when we rest that we are replenished. It is when we rest that we are reinvigorated and we are able to delight in this life and see the beauty of it. It is when we rest that we are able to reconnect, not just with ourselves, but also with our Creator. And when we are able to be refilled to actually go back out into this big, wide world. So please understand that your rest is a right. You are no longer doing things out of obligation. You are doing the things that you are committed to, but we are not overcommitting. And we are not overcommitting because we are actually going to be making decisions and aligning our lives and our calendars with our real capacity. And lastly, we are not just committing to our work rest rhythm, but we are defending and designing our calendars in service of it, which means that we are blocking time. The first thing that we are putting on that calendar is our rest, and we are designing everything else around it. I talked to you guys a little bit about my Sabbath. That means that one day a week I am Sabbathing. That means from sun up to sundown, baby, all I'm doing is delighting, okay? I am hanging out with the people that I love. I am doing my hobbies. I am spending time with the Lord. I am detoxing my brain from the things that have clouded it for the week, right? That means that there are a lot of things that need to get done because life does not stop and my responsibilities do not stop. But every single day, all other 6 days of the week are designed in service of that one day of rest, which means that I have to design my calendar accordingly and I have to defend my calendar, because when I don't, the first thing that people try to schedule over is my rest. And if I don't protect it, who will? If you don't protect it, who will? So that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like down below, send it to a friend, and also be sure to connect with us down below if you have any questions or you're interested in working with me, working with the team, and learning more about how you can design a life you love, how you can stop managing your life so that you can start living it. Please hit that link down below. We would absolutely love to have you. And until next time, take one step at a time to design a life you absolutely love. Bye.